So what does a bike mechanic think about the Sensah Empire 2x12 kit? Here's part 2 of our special build project using an old frame, some random parts, and this import special drivetrain kit. It was pretty cheap and our expectations are not high. If you want to watch part 1, I have included a link in the description. Let's head over to the shop. Okay, here we are in the shop and we're going to work on getting these parts onto this fancy Cannondale Cat 8 frame from 2005 to see if we can in fact make a 12-speed, 2x12 drivetrain bike out of this Cannondale, and we're going to make Kevin ride it. So before we do that, before Kevin obviously can ride the bike, Joe is going to have to put it together. This is Joe Baldacci. He is our Director of Technical Services here at Cyclecraft. And I gave Joe a few minutes to look over these parts so we could get his first impression on what he thinks about these parts. And then we're going to put the bike together. So you had a few minutes, and I didn't want to give you too many minutes. I wanted an honest first impression about what your thoughts were on this.
Fair enough.
All right,
Fair enough.
Lay it on me, Joe. How big a mistake did I make?
Well, so far I don't see any mistakes. We have a decent level 2x12 drivetrain. The chain appears commonplace, solid pin rivets. There are some minor chamfers on both sides of the outer plates of the chain to assist in shifting, to help it move up and down the cassette. The cassette itself, 1132 12-speed. It's fairly heavy for cassettes. Mounted to an alloy carrier. The last two cogs are loose. That's important in that it will most likely not gouge into alloy free hub bodies. So, looks like a good basic cassette.
So when I put it on my fancy lightweight DT Swiss hub, it won't wreck the cassette body too badly?
I think that's accurate, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Let's talk about the rear derailleur. Nice fit and finish. It has a carbon inner cage. Cable routing is similar to other brands that we've seen. Bearing quality for the pulleys appears to be on the better side. Actuation of the derailleur itself is nice and smooth. It remains to be seen how it sets up. Same with the front derailleur. Very, very similar to another brand. Fit and finish is excellent. Actuation is good. The spring does feel a little bit on the stiff side, but that's okay. The heart of the group, we got some shifter brake levers here. This is all mechanical and very, very similar to the double tap of other brands. One notable difference is that we have one single lever as opposed to two levers for upshift and downshift. Actuation is nice and smooth. The clicks are positive. Brake lever return spring feels a little bit on the light side, but again, with assist from the calipers, that should be okay. Overall impression is good to better.
Cool. And one of the questions I had, I mean, you noted that the spring tension on the front and rear derailleur, those springs are pretty stiff. So maybe the return spring action and the levers won't be an issue.
Probably true. Yeah. The cable, the cable has to be pulled back, but we'll see once we get it all set up.
Okay. So that all that remains is for us to actually pop these parts onto this bike back behind us. One of the things we are going to be looking for is, the fit and finish is pretty good, but as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So when Joe puts these parts on, we're going to see how easy or not easy it is to tune these derailleurs to shift, if it's possible to make them shift at all. One of the issues that we are running into is that we're realizing that we have no idea if the chain rings that we have available are going to really work with this chain. So I don't know if we have to find the 12-speed chain rings from the other brand. we're going to see how that works out to make sure that we can get our chain onto the chain rings and actually get this thing to function in the real world. So that's it. We're going to get this thing going. You ready, Joe?
Let's make it happen.
You excited?
I'm good. Let's go.
Let's turn this into a bike.
Well, we have an 11-speed free hub body, okay? So that it now is clear of the spokes, but installing our 11th and 12th cog, the 11's on there okay, but the 12-speed does not interface into the free hub into the driver. That's a no good. This is the first issue we've run into. We're mounting this cassette on a wheel which is laced to a Cyclops power tap hub, which is a slightly larger than normal diameter flange. Putting the cassette in place, we're running into some interference of the spider to the spokes on this wheel. We cannot mount this cassette on this free hub driver body without a spacer because it is an 11-speed free hub body that should mount in place. So we have to go to a different wheel, a different setup where we have a narrower or smaller diameter flange, so that when we install a cassette in place, now we have clearance. This is going to solve our issue, yes.
All right, well, that phase is complete. We've got the parts onto the bike. Sensah Empire 2x12 drivetrain installed on Cannondale Cat 8 frame for 2005. We got some new tires on there. Things are looking good. Joe, tell me about how it went.
Overall, the assembly, the build of this bike went very smoothly. One issue we ran into was interference of the 32-tooth cog on the cassette, interfering with spokes, and that's because they used a dished carrier to make room for the 12 cogs on the rear wheel. Switching to a rear wheel with a smaller flanged rear hub solved that issue. So something to keep in mind if you're going to spec out a build, you need to make sure you have a hub with a smaller diameter flange on the drive side.
So that's a thing that, and worth pointing out that if you already have a wheel set in mind that you're going to use, there's no guarantee that even if it's the correct length hub body, depending on the design of the hub, it may or may not work with this 12 speed because
that's correct.
The way that they have to put it together to make all 12 speeds fit in standard spacing could be a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So be aware of that if you're going to do a kit like this, that you may or may not have compatibility with your wheel. Fair enough?
Good point. Fair enough, yeah. Overall, again, the build went very, very smoothly. Typical old style cable routing. Now this bike is all external routing, so that made it a little bit easier. Everything went together very, very well. Setup on the bike once we had it cabled went very smooth. Limit screws set up easily. The derailleur has no play in it. It works fine. It indexes beautifully. Nice light action on the shift levers. One person may want a little stiffer action, but this works very, very well. Brake setup and brake feel was perfect.
And no issue in tune, like the tuning was just as easy as doing a Shimano or a
any
SRAM.
of those other brands. It went just fine.
Awesome.
No issues.
All right, well,
No issues.
there you have it. So far, so good on the Sensah Empire 12-speed build kit.
One thing we may want to point out is that we're running a 12-speed chain on a 10-speed chain ring crankset. No issues there. It's smooth sailing.
So that's an interesting point. So we wound up not being able to track down, 12-speed chain rings. So you're saying the 10-speed, these are 10-speed chain rings
They
on
are.
this crank, and there's no issue with shifting on the front with the
It
12-speed
shifts very,
chain?
very smoothly.
That's actually a surprise because a lot of times when you put a narrow, like a higher speed chain onto a lower speed chain ring. So for example, back in the old days, we had 6, 7, 8-speed drivetrains. And when Shimano came out with their original 9-speed, the 9-speed chain would not sit on an 8-speed chain ring. It just, the shifting never worked. So what you're saying is that 12-speed chain, just to reiterate, that 12-speed chain works with the 10-speed chain ring.
Yes, it does. It's just perfectly in the stand.
I'm shocked and amazed.
Well, we have yet to ride the bike, but I do not anticipate any issues.
All right, so that's so if the chain falls off or it jams up while it's riding, that'll be for Kevin to discover when he's out on the road. But I'd say so far you were about 2/3 of the way through this test of the Sensah Empire kit. So far, we're feeling pretty confident that it's going to work.
Yes, we are.
Well, it looks like Joe has given his provisional okay of the Empire kit. It's set up easily and it works great on the stand. But like I said, it's the ride that matters. So stay tuned to Cyclecraft TV for part 3 of the series, where our resident bike snob Kevin will put the bike through its paces. Thanks for watching Cyclecraft TV. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and show us some love with that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more Cyclecraft TV, please subscribe. That's it for me, and don't forget, keep that rubber side down.